So with that, we now have a leaders' discussion on infinite possibilities, India's digital roadmap. All of these have their connections tying into another. We will delve into infinite possible solutions on how digital realms can put India on the global map in tandem with the ongoing transformation boom. The speakers for the session include Anant Maheshwari, President Microsoft, and CP Gurnani, MD and CEO Tech Mahindra. This session is chaired by Nitin Bhatt, Technology Sector Leader, EY India. As president of Microsoft India, Anant is responsible for Microsoft's overall businesses and presence in India, leading engagement with policymakers, customers, business partners, and the industry ecosystem. CP has led Tech Mahindra's transformation journey and one of the biggest turnarounds of Indian corporate history, the acquisition and merger of Satyam. Nitin has over 25 years of global consulting experience in the areas of corporate governance, risk management, and business performance improvement. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Shreya, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome. India at 75 years old. It's a fantastic story of how our country has transformed to become a leader in digital innovation, not just for ourselves, but for the entire world. The IT services sector clocks revenues of over $190 billion today and is poised to grow to $350 billion over the next 3 years. India has also created over 80 unicorns who are inspiring a new generation of digital entrepreneurs, building tomorrow's fintech, e-commerce, and SaaS companies, and leveraging digital for creating new value. The government has also deployed digital in a very big way. Aadhaar, of course, as we all know, was the game changer. And since then, we've launched other initiatives, such as the Direct Benefit Program, which helped transfer money to over 100 million citizens during the pandemic. The UPI, which has revolutionized digital payments. The Open Network for Digital Commerce, which empowers micro-entrepreneurs and small traders. And the JAM platform, which plugs leakages in government subsidies. And there are several others. These initiatives have taken digital to the masses for social and economic development. And what stands out to me is the deep sense of purpose and long-termism here. As we discuss the future of digital India with government and industry leaders, there are three broad angles that I find them wrestling with. The first is how digital can further unlock the potential of all of our citizens by addressing challenges related to access, scale, inclusion, affordability, and high transaction costs, and how digital can help reimagine public service delivery in newer areas and create long-term value and prosperity for the entire country. The second is how companies can rewire themselves to take advantage of a cloud-first world, of advances in AI, in IoT, in blockchain, and leverage the massive amounts of data out there for better analytics, to make better predictions and better decisions. And how leaders can use digital as a source of innovation for their customers, to provide them with better experiences, better engagement, and in some cases, completely new business models. And the third is how digital must do better in putting humans at the center of transformation and change, in being more responsible, ethical, and fair. Each of these comes with a host of opportunities and issues, and to share their unique perspectives and insights on how we can progress the Digital India agenda. It's such a privilege to have with us two purposeful giants from the technology industry, whose organizations, I believe, are great examples of being digital in addition to doing digital for their customers. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Anant, let me start with you. It's clear that tech and data will drive the next wave of growth and innovation in India. What do you see as key challenges to accelerating the Digital India agenda, and what role can global platform companies play in addressing these and shaping the opportunities ahead?
Thank you, Nitin. I'm delighted to be here today and share this virtual stage with CP and you. I couldn't really agree more. The Indian IT industry is a source of global innovation and capability building for organizations across the world. Now, we say that the pandemic spurred a tech revolution, but I think India has a great advantage that it was even before the pandemic we were already in a digital revolution. You asked me to speak about digital India. Two words there. I may add one more word and then talk through it. Lead. So these three words can really encapsulate a lot of the trend lines that are happening today. Let me play with these words a little bit. So India leads digital. That's the first phrase I would take. With more than 800 million internet users and 750 million smartphone users, we are amongst the largest digitally connected people on the planet. Billion scale platforms like you mentioned, Aadhaar, UPI, are really transforming lives at scale. And last year, Indian mobile payments exceeded ATM cash withdrawals for the first time. So India is truly leading a digital benchmark for the planet. I'll play those words around in another way. Digital leads India. So we talked about the IT industry nearly touching that $200 billion revenue mark now and growing at a very fast clip. In addition, 60,000 plus startups in the country, and the entrepreneurial momentum is just amazing to truly create the tech backbone for unique solutions in India. Now let me take the third play of that words, lead digital India. And that to me is the big one, which is really the digital optimism that we have driving the next decade of growth and innovation for India and accelerating it. Today, every company is a tech company. Every company will need to adopt the latest tech and build their own unique IP on a foundation of trust. And therefore, in these times, I really see that we should commit to helping people, organizations, and entire industries build their own digital capability. So from government and public sector to the large enterprises to digital natives like startups and unicorns to SMBs to SaaS companies and ISVs, everybody have to come together. Global platform companies have to empower, therefore, every industry and every sector in India to transform.
I couldn't agree more, Anant. India leads digital and digital leads India. And I think that's really what's driving a lot of the innovation that we're seeing today. And CP, on that note, as we're all aware, it's the digital innovation that's been driving and fueling a lot of the excitement we're seeing today. Digital innovation is critical. And yet, when we talk to a number of business leaders, they always lament that their innovation efforts remain siloed, experimental, oftentimes failing to create impact at scale. What, in your perspective, can we do to drive innovation and industrialize it so that it can scale up quickly?
So, Nitin, it is coincidental that Anant and I were together on a government committee just about a year and a half ago. And both of us, in a different words, emphasized on purpose-led innovation. Both of us, while complement the efforts of the government, the private sector, and more importantly, the user base in creating a web of what I call tech for all. But when I start thinking about purpose-led innovation, it was more about can an individual code in his native language. And that is where Tech Mahindra worked and created in their own R&D labs the PHML, and which is you can now code in your language. Similarly, when I look at the purpose-led innovation, to me the success of getting connectivity to the last user on the planet or the last user in India is one of the big challenges. And the more we can apply frugal and tech-led innovation, we are solving the problem of connecting the billion plus people who are not connected right now. Similarly, when I start looking at tech for all, as I said, language breaks a barrier. Connectivity. Number third is whether it is a smart tablet or a smartphone, if we can make it affordable, if we can create an environment, and which is where I think the new technologies will allow you to do it. The reality is that the lot of consumption today is being driven by content a lot of consumption will also get driven by becoming more use cases friendly. And as long as we can work tech for all, purpose-led innovation, and can start solving these last mile issues or the hardware availability or the price availability, I think we are in good shape.
Excellent thoughts there. Tech for all and frugal innovation really has been at the heart of how some of our folks who were resource constrained in different parts of India really made big things happen out of small ideas. And Anant, Microsoft really has been doing some terrific work with the startup ecosystem, spawning startups, working with the SMBs, which really are hotbeds of innovation, frugal innovation, as CP called it, and growth engines of the Indian economy. Anant, how can India continue the fantastic momentum that we're seeing today?
So definitely the digital natives, which is startups, unicorns, soonicorns, and many other terms that are coming new today. They're really driving this entrepreneurial energy, and participating with them are the MSMEs and the SMBs in the country. This innovation across sectors that startups have accelerated is just incredible. And the entrepreneurial energy is just disrupting every sector and every industry. So creating new business models, attracting the global investment, opening up the job opportunities, driving the next chapter of growth and innovation for India. We are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world already. And some of the numbers are just mind-boggling. In 21 alone, India produced a unicorn every 9 days and 4 new startups every day. So it's amazing how we are continuing to grow, and that's therefore coming through with this new trend line of really not having these startups and unicorns in just the metros or the large cities in the country. But today, 45% of the startups actually operate in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. It's a testimony to the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat, really driving grassroots innovation in the country. Now, one trend line that I think will have to change as we go forward, and I already see that happening, like the tech industry, the IT industry from India, which was initially largely set up to serve the innovation from India for the world. Even a lot of our B2B SaaS companies and some of the startups really started driving some innovation from India for the world. We are now seeing a lot more energy of even B2B and B2C really driving unique Indian models, which will drive solutions in India for India. And that to me is the crux of where Atmanirbhar Bharat will really land. Because if this entrepreneurial energy is targeted towards the solutions that the country requires, we will really have an unlimited momentum as we go forward. So to me, that's the big enablement that all of us need to drive.
I couldn't agree more. I think the energy is fantastic. The ability to use digital for the advancement of India is incredible. And both the B2C and the B2B focus has really put digital and digitalization front and center for all business leaders and all faces of the government. And CP, I think one of the pieces that I hear some worries around is that with the rapid pace of digitalization, there are concerns that there may not be enough of a focus on the human elements, especially the softer pieces such as culture, experience, engagement, mental health, empathy, and compassion. What advice do you have for leaders who are building digital-first organizations today?
So, Nitin, I would agree that we have to realize that technology is an enabler. Technology is helping us shape our future, and the future is more human than we imagine. So, for example, at Mahindra University, whenever we have had our board meetings, we have emphasized on human engineering as much as we have emphasized on artificial intelligence or on metaverse or on the data sciences or on cybersecurity. So my fundamental point is let's all recognize that the guy who sits in the basement and plays esports ultimately needs people to interact with, and we as leaders have to make sure that we create an environment. We worry about that change management as leaders. And if we are conscious about it, I know we will create opportunities and we will try and make technology as human and more, as interactive, as much fun as growing up years for some of us were when we went to the classroom and we spent enough time outside the classroom also.
I love the human engineering piece of what you said. I would love to hear it much more when we talk about the future of technology, because I think it's fundamental to my next question, which is really to both of you, CP and Anant, is on digital inclusion. Lots of worries around that, even as technology has helped organizations, as we all know, be resilient during the pandemic. It's also brought to the fore the digital divide in our country. And bridging this divide, I think, is a huge opportunity that could unleash a massive wave of human potential. So I'll start with you, CP. How can India fast track digital inclusion and truly democratize digital?
You know, a lot of ways when we are talking about the startups, uh, you know, a few of us have also seen the adoption of Shark Tank. And when somebody creates a bicycle to solve a problem of his father carrying the spray device on his back, to me, what have we solved? We have solved, number one is inclusion of that youngster from a village. Number two is solving real life problems. And number third, the results or the productivity being translated in almost real time. Now, I, for one, is convinced that India, the day we started accepting a mobile wallet, when a shopkeeper or the hawker started accepting a mobile wallet payment, I think India had started becoming a lot more inclusive. And again, I want to re-emphasize, we need to define the problems that are not allowing us to connect every bit. That means I may not have 5G. In 5G, I will have an urban environment. But how do I make 2G equally effective? Number two, that BharatNet, how do I extend it to every block and every village? And number three, ultimately, I do need a device, but may not be able to give a smartphone to everybody. Can I make a character-based device more interactive? A lot has been achieved. Frankly, India is very, very proud today. Both Anant and I spend a lot of time talking to our overseas friends. I mean, it is incredible the playback that you get. Digital currency, digital university. You guys are way ahead of the rest of the world. And I can tell you that these are the complements that we need to work to not only get those compliments, to convert them into reality. And I know most of us in technology sector are committed to bring in tech for all.
I couldn't agree more, CP. And I think what's critical to what you just said is, while we made great strides as we think about future innovations, keeping the last mile front and center as we define the problem and as we frame the solutions would be really critical. Anant, on a similar note, how do you think skilling can play a role in bridging the digital equity gap?
So, Nitin, I was very inspired listening to the story that CP just described of how the technology has for all and how you create inclusion. Let me start with a story there again, and then talk about skilling. When we generally talk about digital skilling, we may think about platforms where you're teaching coding or you're teaching some very high-end skills to create AI or ML technologies and so on. But think about the security guard that all of us come across in different places in our day-to-day life, in any city or small town in the country. How that role has evolved over at least a decade. Today, that security guard is not just performing the function of security. This person is really manning effectively all the incoming communication. The person is managing logistics, is really thinking through organization inside a space. And therefore, a lot more skills are there, and all of that is happening on a digital interface. And you think about what skilling, therefore, you need to provide to that person, because his or her role has become extremely digital today than what it was in the past. And therefore, when you think about digital skilling, it's not just the traditional white collar skilling for digital that we have to think about, but a lot of skilling in the more sort of inclusive way across the society. And therefore, skilling, access, and inclusion go hand in hand in bridging the digital divide. And to me, that example brings the need for creating that access for that individual, creating the skilling that is needed for that individual on the job and even before getting onto the job, and inclusion to really make it, even as CPs refer to languages, in many different ways so that that person can interface in whatever language that the person is comfortable with.
I think that's a great paradigm shift that many of us need to realize, recognize, and really imbibe as we think about skilling. Because, like you suggested, Anant, most people think of skilling, they think of coding and those kinds of things. But I think there's something much more fundamental in terms of saying, what do I need to do to the person in the sharpest corners of the country who may be far, far away from coding and those kinds of things? And then we need to work on that agenda before we take them up to the next level to really make this inclusive and sustainable on a long-term basis. And talking about sustainability, CP, TechM has demonstrated great leadership in ESG. And I know sustainability is very, very high on your personal agenda. What role can digital play? And you've talked about what role digital companies should play in ensuring that ESG is not just a metrics reporting exercise that people worry about, but one that truly advances sustainability through responsible actions.
So, Nitin, quick perspective on ESG. Most of us have been moved by some of our youngsters. I mean, I'm talking as a global citizen coming forward and warning us about climate control, asking the elder generation, do you have the right to give us a worse planet than what you inherited? I mean, there have been huge wake-up calls. And frankly, I am so pleased that same purpose-led innovation, purpose-led problem solving, when we asked our employees, again, inclusive, what is it that you want us to achieve? And they said, sustainability is personal. We want the company to now recognize that sustainability is a big issue on an individual basis. Can we bring in technology to start measuring where we were, where we want to be? Can we bring in a platform which not only educates us as individuals or as a corporation, but educates the rest of the world that ESG is everybody's purpose? And last but not the least, I mean, creating a tech index, creating aggressive goals is one part of that element. But more important is finding alternate solutions. That in my company, people will discuss for endless hours, uh, not only solar energy, they will also look at ethanol based fuels. They will actually come back and encourage us to write white papers to the Ministry of Oil and Petroleum on usage of ethanol as a fuel. So I think the moment it becomes a mass movement, you see a very, very different response. And I'm also happy that most of us are now having this conversation in the boardrooms. Most of us are also creating tech platforms, and most of us also have definitive goals. And hence, in my opinion, the battle is almost half resolved because people take it as their mission. Sustainability has become personal.
Great point. Sustainability as personal and as digital enables industries to scale and to grow. I think and I agree we need tech that is trusted and built for security and privacy. And Anant, I know Microsoft is huge on this mission to advance digital trust. What is your approach to building tech that people trust going forward?
So all of us have experienced this in the pandemic. We've been using a lot of technology platforms, and these platforms are effectively in our homes today. And it's a given fact that people will only use technology that they trust. It is absolutely clear that real technology transformation is going to accelerate only if trust is at the bottom, at the middle, and at the top of it. So trust has to be integral in everything that we do. I think that will be one of the defining trends of the pandemic going forward. So it's estimated that even today, it is costing economies more than $6 trillion globally, driven by cybercrime. So cybercrime has become that big an issue for the global economy, and it's only going to increase to maybe about $10 trillion by 25. So this impact of cybercrime is very, very critical, not just from a technology point of view, but even from a broader global economy. Microsoft has really pivoted hard over the last few years to even think of security as an absolutely separate business and absolutely separate investment. So we invest over $1 billion each year on just the R&D in security. I came across a very interesting fact. Just last year, we were saying that we analyze more than 8 trillion signals every day to then identify trend lines on malware, on cybercrime, and so on. It was just amazing for me to realize that within a year, we're now analyzing 24 trillion signals a day. So the signals are just going up dramatically. And therefore, the ability to find patterns and capabilities there, and your adversary is also working on it much more significantly in driving that forward. So trust, cybercrime, security are inherent. I actually think of trust, and that is how Microsoft also thinks about it. There are 6 separate elements of trust which we try to embed in everything that we do. First, of course, is security that a lot of us understand. Second is reliability. We've all begun to understand it during the pandemic because any platform that is not reliable, you don't want to use that platform. Third is privacy. It's in our homes. I just talked about it. So therefore, privacy becomes very, very important. Now governments are getting into the act and therefore the rules are being written. So compliance becomes a very big part of what you do with tech platforms. Now with AI, you start thinking about ethics. Whose AI is it? Is it equivalent for all parts of the society? Are there any biases built in already? So ethics becomes very important. And finally, transparency. Do you really understand what is happening here? And therefore, bringing all of those policies, practices, clear and accessible to everyone becomes a very big part of it. So that's how we think about the entire sort of domain of trust. And we always ask ourselves, not what tech can do, but what tech should do. And that, I think, helps at a very basic level to do the right thing.
Really, really fundamental. What tech must do versus what tech can do, I think, will be critical, as will digital trust as we think about India's roadmap over the next several years ahead. I'd like to end by fast forwarding to India at 100 and asking both of you a question. Now, both of you are known to dream big and to dream bold. What are your dreams and aspirations for digital India, say 25 years down the line when India is 100 years old? Anant, I'll start with you.
I'm really glad that you asked me first because it'll be difficult to follow CP's vision on this one. So let me at least lead with the same three phrases that I used in the beginning of this chat around India leading digital, digital leading India, and leading digital India. So let me start with the first one. India leading digital. I truly would imagine India to be the data and AI capital for the planet, and really having everything being done in this country to create innovation for the rest of the world. Digital leading India, I think it's really about an all-pervasive digitization and unique solutions which touches every human in the country and empowering every person in the country, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary, cutting across all the rural and urban divides and all kinds of divides that we may have in the country, if digital can help us lead all of that, and therefore leading India. And finally, leading digital India, I think it's really about all of us jointly creating this talent pool that is the best on the planet, and therefore creating that benchmark for the entire world and for the country, removing all sorts of demographic arbitrage.
That's really terrific. CP, over to you.
One is for a minute, I will be extra serious, which is that to me, the dream of digital India is digital helping transform the lives and livelihoods, and we are able to see the impact at the grassroots, powered by the ingenuity and the innovation of Indians. Now, whether you call it tech-led, startup-led, or my favorite, human engineering and technology engineering working together to make India as a showcase of digital India. Now, clearly, this aspiration takes into account that a lot more can be achieved. We have to work together to drive a seamless, as Anand says, transparent, inclusive digital ecosystem where the results are measured by creating opportunities. The day a Web 3.0 enables a Nitin to buy a achar from a lady in Amethi, and she is able to personalize it for Nitin. To me, that is the day the technology happens, because your mom always specialized or customized the food for you. Now think of this happening for 1.3 billion people, and 1.3 billion people being able to do a commerce seamlessly. Now that to me is my dream for Digital India.
Wow. Thank you, CP and Anant, for helping us end on a very, very inspirational note. When we look back 25 years from now and reflect on the reasons for our progress, we will likely attribute it in great measure to the adoption of digital at speed, innovation at scale, and because I believe we would have been deliberate, like CP said, in putting human engineering and humans at the center of our progress. I truly believe that digital will play a great part in leveling the playing field for all. It will help in including the excluded, in further igniting India's entrepreneurial spirit, and in providing opportunities for all Indians so that we can all realize our potential and build a better world for ourselves, for the citizens of India, and indeed the world at large. So before I close, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Anant and CP, for your valuable insights and perspectives. Your purpose-driven leadership and passion for leveraging digital for good, I'm sure, will inspire many, many of us and help us build the India of our dreams. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Be well, stay safe, and bye for now.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Okay, so on that note, thank you, Anant, CP, and Nitin, for a truly engaging discussion on the transformation and the infinite options that businesses have in the new age. Connecting the dots and deliberating on increasing digital inclusivity, we first need to identify the problems that are not allowing us to connect at every step. And skilling, accessibility, and inclusivity go hand in hand in bridging India's digital divide, and that's happening and how.